Well, today I'm going to show you how I catch a lot of fish, and we're talking swamp fishing, river fishing, cypress pond fishing. I want to show you basically where I fish, the time of year I fish, what baits I'm using, what setups I'm using. So let's get into it. To start with, I'm just going to show you this is kind of my all-around bass rod. I take it red fishing. I do everything inshore red fishing. I've caught 26-inch reds on it, I guess. I don't know. It'll hold them, but it comes in a combo. You can buy it through Bass Pro Shop, and it comes with a little cheap reel. But this rod, as far as fishing creeks and rivers and stuff, is the best I've found. I've been using this one for a long time, but it's a 5/6 medium action Shakespeare Ugly Stick GX2. But I've used these. I mean, the rod doesn't matter a whole lot, but if you're fishing creeks, fishing swamps, fishing where there's a lot of tight cover, tree limbs, moss hanging, vines hanging, then I wouldn't go over 6 foot just because it limits you. So I either use a 5/6 or a 5/10 most of the time, but this 5/6 works great. So I've got it on the got a quantum smoke on it. I can't remember. I think that's the 20. 15-pound braid, and I buy my braid from a charter captain over in Tampa or Sarasota, wherever it's at. I buy it local, but it's just a good braid. I can put a link in the description. So that's what I use as far as anything. I'm gonna say anything over. If I'm wanting to catch bass over 4 pounds, I'm using that rod and reel setup. This is my ultralight, and this is another ugly stick. I love an ugly stick, but this is the 5-foot ultralight. So I mean, you can see this thing is light. A lot of y'all probably used them before. It's got the Daiwa Regal 1000, and I've got it strung with 4-pound test fluorocarbon, 4-pound test. So if you're fishing cover, logs, sticks, anything like that, this isn't going to hold up. This is open water or grass, fishing edges of hyacinths and things like that. But I can go ahead and show you this bait. This is one of my favorite baits for warmouth. You can catch a lot of Stumpknockers and stuff on them. I'll show you the full setup. I can put links in the description. But I buy these on Amazon, and you can see it's a paddle tail, and see that real small hook, and I have the hook set more towards the front of the lure. That way the tail has a lot more action, and I'm working at weightless. And the reason I work at weightless is so it stays in the hole longer. So when I flip it up in that hole, instead of it sinking fast, or I'm having to work it so it don't get hung up on sticks and stuff, I'm having to get it out of there fast. Weighted, if I use it weightless, I can flip it in the hole and just twitch it. I barely have to reel, and it stays in the hole longer. Most of the time they'll hit it on the first or second twitch, but that's a great setup for warmouth. And then even on these hooks, I'll show you these hooks good in a minute. That's the smallest wide gap hook you can buy that I know of, that I've ever found. But even with these hooks, I'll catch 4-pound bass up to, I call this setup up to 4 pounds. I'll catch them that. So if I'm going to catch a bunch of eater fish, then this is what I'm throwing. These here I don't have the package for, so I can't show you the package, but I'll find a picture or get a link in the description. But these are I think this is actually a bang minnow, but the panfish assassins is typically what I buy, and it's 2 inches long, and it's made for the wide gap hooks. So I use And I buy all this stuff off of Amazon pretty much. There's the hooks. But you can see the size there. That's a 2-inch bait. So when I hook these things, I'm sure most people know how to do it, but I'm gonna show it anyway. Just go through the nose, and that's a very small shank right there, so you don't have to go through much. But I'm gonna go through the nose, and I'll go a little bit more than I need to. And I'm gonna run that down and set it beside my bait. Now I can see where the hook needs to come through, so I'm just gonna mark it with my finger. And I wanna run it right through the center. And that's it. And it's almost weedless. And working that weightless, it's gonna stay in the hole, and look at that action. So bluegill, Stumpknockers, bass up to 4 pounds. Like if I'm wanting to catch a bunch of fish to eat, I'm throwing something like this, one of these paddle tails or a single swirl tail. I'll show you the different baits, but it's small with these small hooks. Believe it or not, you'll catch fish 3 to 4 inches long on this with this hook, but you can still catch up to a 4-pound bass. So your variety of eater fish is a lot larger when throwing something like this. These are the single tail swirl tail grubs I'm throwing, which are I rig them the exact same way as I just showed you with the minnow, and they do the same thing. A lot of action. There's more pink and white is typically what I use in these. Now if I'm wanting to target say 16, 20-inch bass, 3-pounders or something, I'm basically going to do the same thing, but I'm going to up my bait size just a little bit. So this is like a 3.5 maybe. You can see how small that is, but how thin the tail is. It's going to have a lot of that action. So your body's still working the same, but that tail back there is just going crazy. Now if I'm wanting to, and you can do the same setup on a cane pole, I use 10-foot rods like Lou's brim sticks or crappie stick, and you can jig with it. But everybody knows that's just a larva off a beetle spin, but that's a 1/32 ounce jig head, and I do like the black. If I'm warmouth fishing, sometimes I'll put on a chartreuse, but black seems to be the most consistent. Everybody knows beetle spins, but that's a little bigger hook on a beetle spin there. So I'm gonna throw this if the water's just a little bit deeper, and I don't throw them a whole lot, but it's great for like people just getting started fishing that don't really know how to make a lure have the action, because you just throw it and reel it. So like if I have somebody with me that's just not catching fish the way I'm fishing and stuff, I'll have them put this on and then they'll catch fish, because you're just reeling it, and that's a little bit heavier head with a bigger hook, so I'll catch up to 4-pound bass on it. And it'll work a little deeper. I'll use it in a little deeper water a lot of times too. I mean, it works shallow, you just got to work it faster, reel it faster. But hard to go wrong with a beetle spin. And these hooks have the wires to hold your bait on, so they'll hold like the Bobby Garland minnows. They'll hold them a little better. I can show you. That's just a Bobby Garland minnow there, and that would be something I would run on that setup. Now this is a Bobby Garland minnow on a 1/32 ounce head, and you need to tie these with the loop knots. I'm not going to sit here and show you how to do a loop knot. There's a ton of videos on YouTube on how to tie a loop knot for a jig head, so look that up. But if you tie a hard knot, they don't hang right. If you tie a loop knot, then they hang horizontal like they're supposed to. So I'll throw these without the beetle spin, just strictly the jig head, and that's great for especially if I can get into a bluegill hole even warmouth, but it's a little bit small for warmouth. But if I get into a big bluegill hole or something, I can use my ultralight and just flip this up there and I'll catch a stringer full of bluegill. I do play with the color a little bit. I have a ton of different colors. This one here is pretty consistent. The crawdad, it does good. This one does good. The pink does good, especially for warmouth. And then that's just a minnow, which the tail's broke, but that's just basically a minnow color. So like Stumpknockers and bass and small bass and stuff, that works great. There's another swirl tail, just a different color. I will buy a bunch of different colors. So something like that, a brighter color tends to work great for warmouth and big warmouth. Now we'll talk about if I want to catch bigger bass. So basically, like if I'm wanting to catch 4 pounds and up, then I'm basically going to do the same thing, but I'm just increasing the size of my bait. So I'll use these soft baits, and I'm still using a little bit smaller hook than I should. I've ripped this one up, but and it's weighted more towards the front. So when I work this thing, and I'm working it weightless, I can flip it up in some cover and some holes, and it's going to dive. And as I twitch it, it's going to jump up, and it's going to dive, and that's great for a bigger bass. I'm not going to pull each one out, but this is different color feather jigs, and they're all 1/32 ounce. But I'll do the same thing in a bluegill hole or a warmouth hole. I'll figure out kind of what color they're hitting, and I'll tie that color. I'll have that color on, and then I'll sit there in a hole and just fill a stringer up. And do the same thing with all these little type baits. These I don't like as much, but I will use them. These I put on the same wide gap hook. You can use them on a jig also. They work great, but you just get a lot of that action, and when it's in the water, it's doing this as you twitch it. And it's great for warmouth. All right, now we're going to talk about bigger bass. And a lot of people find it hard to believe, but you can catch 10, 11, 12 pound bass in holes in cypress ponds, in places of small, where the river's small, even where the river's small, creeks. So there's bigger bass than people think in the swamp. But anybody that has known me for any length of time knows the tiny torpedo is my go-to topwater lure, basically my go-to lure. I've got them in every color. I have the baby torpedo in every color. My favorite, that's probably my favorite swamp fishing lure right there, and that's called a natural perch. And that's the tiny torpedo. I think it's an inch and quarter. There's quarter ounce natural perch, tiny torpedo. That's my go-to lure. If I'm just wanting to fish to enjoy myself, that's what I'm throwing. But like I said, if I'm wanting to fish to catch a stringer full of fish and eat, and I know a lot of people don't like keeping fish, but we're going to get into that in a minute, because I'm fishing places that really I'm the only one fishing. So for the big bass, I'm upping my bait size. Really the only thing I'm changing, I'm upping my bait size. Now you can go into Bangalores. I catch a lot of big bass. These are old. I don't even think you can buy them anymore, honestly. I'm not sure. You can probably get them on eBay. But the old Bangalores, it's hard to beat them because they work slow. You can throw them up in a hole and you don't have to reel them, just twitch it. And it makes a loud noise. Frogs are always good for big bass. This is another ultralight, just a Rapala, but you can catch a ton of bluegill and stuff on these ultralights in the holes. I've got the Storm rattling chuck bug, I believe is what it's called. but I buy these online. It's the really small ones. So there's the regular size, and there's this size. I use both of them, but this one tends to catch more fish in the swamp than the full size does. But you will catch your bigger bass, you know, your 10, 11 pound bass, you'll catch on this. Probably my top 4 biggest bass, and that's, I don't trophy bass fish too much, but over 10 pounds, probably caught 4 bass over 10 pounds that's coming to mind right now, and I've caught them all on that in small creeks and small places in the river. Maybe I'm wade fishing most of it, like most of it is thigh deep, and then there's turn holes in the corners and stuff, and that's where I'll pick up the big bass on these. Alright, now let's talk about, it's hot out here. Let's talk about where I'm fishing. So if you look at these tournament fishermen, and I'm not talking anything bad about it, I know it's a different style and it's not for me, but I saw the results on a tournament on a local lake the other day, like 40 pounds 8 ounces or something won the tournament. Where I'm going fishing, 40 pounds 8 ounces might be my first 6 cast. So it's a different style of fishing. I'm going to catch, not to sit out in the sun and try to win a tournament or something, whatever. I don't get it, but anyway. So if I'm going big bass fishing, then there has to be enough water to support a big bass. So typically I'm not going big bass fishing. I'm gonna catch a bunch of small bass, and then in the holes I'll put something on to catch a big bass. But as far as where I'm going, I mean, we got a lot of rivers and stuff around here. I mean, Hillsborough, Withlacoochee, St. John's, there's big rivers everywhere. But off of those rivers, there's creeks and stuff that flow into the river. There's big open water slough swamps that really have no flow outside of rainy season or hurricane season or something. There's places where the river has changed its course, and I just call them dead runs, but there's dead runs where the river turned now and it used to go this way, so there's a whole big cut that's staying in water, but there's no flow outside of when its water's really high. So it's kind of like fishing lakes. They'll be heisened over. One thing I look for is I try not to fish anywhere, and I'm not saying it's not good. I do fish places where people can get boats, but I tend to stay away from where people can take boats. Now, I may take a little kayak. I have multiple different size kayaks, but I have little 8.5 footers that weigh like 45 pounds, so I can either drag them way into a swamp, or I build a little rack on 26-inch bike tires where I can set them up on a rack and pull them over cypress knees, so the axle is taller than the cypress knees. But I'll drag them into places, or I'll put in the river and go down to a slough and park and wade. But I'm looking for places to where people can't get a boat, get away from people, bank fishermen, any of it. I want to be away from people. And in some of these places, I'll go out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and fish till dark and catch 120 bass. You know, I'll catch 25 bass an hour or something, and that's about as fast as you can catch one, take him off, and catch another one. So I'm looking for out of the way places away from people, and sometimes they're hard to get to. You got to walk a mile through the swamp, 2 miles through the swamp. You can look at a map and see open holes of water in the middle of big cypress ponds, or you can see a lot of places in management areas they dug ponds around cypress ponds or in the middle of a cypress pond or something. Years ago they dug and got the dirt out to build roads. So you can see them places on the map and walk in there to them, and obviously you can't put a boat in unless you drag it a long ways, places, things like that. That's typically where I find the bigger bluegills. But as far as the creeks and the rivers, I mean, they're literally everywhere. Some places I don't have a lot of luck with it, doing it in like city limits or town or anything, but you get out rural and there's places you can ask permission. Just like a person has property that backs up to a creek or backs up to whatever it is. You can ask them if you can park your vehicle there and just access. All you want to do is launch your kayak or whatever it is and go somewhere. And a lot of times they'll let you. As far as like fishing the big river, I'll put in the big river, and I may even put my bigger boat in the big river. But I'm going to run somewhere to a slough, or a lot of places in the river have trees down, especially after the hurricanes. They have trees down where the river's blocked, like completely blocked. You can't get a kayak through, you can't get anything through, but it's blocked for say half a mile. And then on the other side of the blockage there's a open stretch of water, and then it's blocked again. So there's that, say, a 500-yard long open stretch of water that nobody can access short of walking. So that's where I'm going to go, because not many people are walking in there to fish it. Right now the water's low. I like to fish when the water's low. Generally I'm getting soaking wet when I'm fishing, so I normally don't start till somewhere towards the end of February, when it warms up just a little bit to where I'm not freezing to death. But I'll fish from whenever I start. I mean, I like winter fishing too, catching speck, crappie, and you can catch warmouth and stuff in the winter, or even bass. But it's not the bite isn't as hard, I guess you would call it. It's not like they're not going to really chase your lure as much. It's not as active. But once it starts warming up, late February, I'll start fishing. I'll fish all the way up to when it starts raining a lot and the water's coming up. Everything's getting murky. I like that section from February to July, when the water's going down, the water's low. Most of the time the water's clear and it's hot. Fish have already spawned, or by now fish have already spawned. But you can get on the spawning fish, February, March, April, through that period in the rivers and the river systems. You can get on the spawning bass, and that's a lot of fun. Red breast, that's fun. You can see the beds in a lot of places if you're wading where it's shallow and just flipping to them. But I like to fish when it's lower water and in the banks. When the swamp's full and the fish can be anywhere, then it's hard to fish, and I don't enjoy it as much because I like catching. But most of these places that I find, and a lot of them I've fished for years, but I'm mainly the only person fishing it, or there could be one other person or two other people that fish them like I do once or twice a year. But basically what I'm doing is I fish a spot once and I go somewhere else. Or if it's a long section of creek or river, I'll fish this part one day, fish this part another day, fish this part another day, but I'm not fishing the same place twice in a year, and that keeps it good. If you go find a hole in the swamp and you go fish it every day for a week, then it's done. And then it may, you'll catch some fish the following year or whatever, but it's going to go downhill. So remember to just be aware that if you're catching the fish and keeping them, then eventually it's going to run out of fish. So I kind of just bounce around and never fish the same place twice, because when I'm fishing, 90% of the time I'm keeping my limit on bass, and then I'm keeping my limit on warmouth, bluegill, Stumpknockers, all of it. I like to eat fish. Well, I believe that pretty well covers everything I want to talk about. I'll try to put, I'm not too high tech, but I'll try to put links to the things I can in the description. The hooks, again, I'll see if I can pull these up. They're a little bit hard for me to find. Like it's not something I can go to the store, and any store, and buy. I have seen them at Bass Pro occasionally, but it's they have, if you look at hook sizes, they have these, and then 1/0, the number 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, whatever. These are the smallest and not on most packs. So it's not they have the pound symbol 1 size, and then they have the 1 pound symbol size. I've got to look and see which ones these are. I can't ever remember it. But it's not the standard size 1 hook. It's the smaller one. I'll see if I can figure it out and put something in the description. But that is important. These are stringer filling machines right here. But anyway, I think that about covers it. Remember to keep an eye out for gators. When the water's low, they will get aggressive. They'll chase you. I've been chased out on the bank multiple times and chased through the woods. And Tristan's actually holding the camera for me right now, and he's going, yeah, me too. So they'll get bad. Pay attention to your surroundings. I try to, if I'm coming into a place, I try to just make a little noise or something and maybe see. Sometimes I'll even splash like a fish and see if a gator comes out of the grass or something. But just pay attention. When they sink, when you're fishing small creeks and them big gators go down, they're somewhere you're walking by them. If you pay attention. But anyway, I hope that helps. I hope y'all catch some fish. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.